Hey everyone, my name's Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. Today I'm taking you guys outside and we are going to learn how to paint an assortment of fall leaves. Fall is one of my favorite seasons, and for anybody that's painted with watercolor, the fall leaves are honestly the most fun to paint just because you can mix and blend so many colors, so I cannot wait to teach you guys. Let's get started. For supplies today, what you guys will need is 2 cups of water, 1 for clean water, 1 for dirty. Today I'm using 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. For paintbrushes, I have 3 different sizes. I'm using number 8, number 4, and number 2 of Opus Allegro's paintbrushes. But if you guys pick anything, small, medium, large, that works awesome. As well as a ink pen. I'm using the Micron number 2. If you guys use anything below an 05, the size should be good. And then lastly, for paint, I'm using a mix of different paintbrushes. Main thing is that you guys have some sort of green, red, orange, and yellow. I'm using a combination of Winsor & Newton's artist grade paints. So I have a dark green color in there, and then I'm using Art Philosophy and Co's palettes, both Woodland and Terrain. But again, anything that is fall colors, brown, orange, red, green, whatever, you guys can have fun with what colors you use for this. All right, so to start, I have drawn out a few different types of leaves and little branches that we're going to be painting. If you guys want, I have linked a PDF below that just shows what the leaves look like. So if you guys want to follow that along and draw them out prior to starting, then feel free to pause now, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you're welcome to just follow along. We're going to start with our basic leaf branch, and I am actually going to start with a green paint. I'm using my bigger paintbrush here. So what I want us to do is fill in with water first. I'll just start with a few of the leaves. So I'm just painting inside where I've drawn the little leaves. And I'm just gonna paint one side of them to let the water soak in a bit so that it's not too runny. And we're gonna start with a nice dark green here. So I'm just dotting it in to where I've put the water already, but I'm not gonna fill in the entire leaf. All right, so once that is done, I'm going in with a bit of a burnt red. So I'm using from my Woodlands palette, I'm using a foxberry color, and I'm gonna fill in some of that white spot and just overlap with some of the green. So one of my favorite things about fall is the mix of colors that you see in the leaves, which is why I love painting fall leaves. Just because you can play around and mix honestly whatever colors you want. You can look around and pick a leaf that you see and paint it. So I'm going in with a little bit of brown now just because I want to tone it down in some spots. A little bit too much water on my paintbrush there, so I'm just going to dry some of it off. All right, so I'm just gonna let this dry now on that one side, but I'm gonna go ahead and paint in the other side. All right, so we're just gonna go in with some green. And the idea is that I'm kind of painting it along one side of the leaf and just letting it bleed in. And I'm actually gonna go back in some of the first leaves that I did and add a little bit more. Now again, I'm gonna go back on the other side with my foxberry red, and I've mixed it with a little bit of brown. And we're just gonna fill it in. So it looks like a bit of a mess of colors right now, but as you paint in and as you add more leaves, you'll notice everything sort of just start to come together. So again, I'm just mixing my green and red, and now I'm gonna go in with my smaller size 2 paintbrush, and we're gonna paint the stem. So I'm doing a really skinny line coming down, and then I'm just gonna attach each leaf to the main stem. All right, so we are going to come back to this painting in a little bit and add some more details, but for now I'm gonna leave it and let it dry. Because the air is a bit cooler out here, I'm noticing it's definitely taking longer to dry, which is okay. So we're gonna move on to our next leaf and come back. So the next leaf that I want us to paint is this one that's up in the top left corner here. And this one, we're gonna paint it more with red. So I'm gonna mix myself some of this foxberry red, and I'm mixing it with the cavern orange just to give it a bit of a brighter color. All right, so I wanna start with it nice and watered down, and going in with my bigger paintbrush, I'm just gonna fill in the lines that I have. So essentially what it looks like is a cluster of single leaves put together. So you'll see as I start painting, I have the tip of my paintbrush down and apply pressure as I pull back. And I'm gonna do that all the way around. And I'm just adding these 2 little leaves at the bottom. All right, so while it is wet, I want to go into the corners with a more concentrated red paint. And I'm sort of just dotting it in and letting the paint bleed. So as you see with this first one, it's not quite bleeding into the rest of my leaf because it may have been too dry. So I'm just gonna take my paintbrush. What I did is I dipped it in the water and dried it off a bit, and I'm just using a technique to pull the paint into the rest of the leaf, just so that it looks like it fades a bit more. Right, and now for this one, I want to leave the white effect showing through. So I'm gonna leave the center lighter, but I am going to add just a touch of orange into it as well, just to give it a little bit more of a variety of colors. So again, I'm just dotting it in to where my paper is already wet. And it's not gonna be super obvious as it dries, but it just gives the leaf more interest by mixing the colors. And as you look around, a lot of times when we see red leaves, they're either mixed with orange or green or both. So this is our chance to have fun, to take that to paint. This also is super good practice for mixing colors together. So practicing with these different leaves will really help build your technique. All right, so the next leaf we are going to paint is our maple leaf. So again, I'm going to go in with my red paint. This time I'm gonna take a little bit more of a vibrant red. I have in my terrain palette here, sourwood. But what I want to do, so I've just mixed some and I have it wet and ready to go, watered down. But I want to do first is go in with my water, and I'm actually gonna switch to a paintbrush that's a little bit smaller so I can have some more detail there. So I'm using my Opus number 4, and I'm just gonna paint it in. All right, so now I'm gonna go into my red that I've already mixed and just start coloring in the maple leaf. All right, so now that I have sort of the base of it painted, I'm gonna go in and just add some more details to fine tune the shape of it. So I'm going in, I'm mixing a bit more of an orangey red. I want it to be a little bit deeper. And I'm gonna start from this top point here. I've switched now to my smaller paintbrush. And I'm just working on defining those lines and curves. So I'm painting with a darker color. And then what I'm actually gonna do is wet my paintbrush and go in with water and just mix the color into the rest of the leaf. So now I'm gonna do the same thing on the side here. And I'm just working on really defining that shape. And now with my water, I'm just gonna mix it in. All right, and for now, I'm just gonna paint the red stem. Okay, so the next leaf that we're going to paint is going to be a yellow one. So again, this is just a basic leaf. We're gonna follow the same concept and go in with water first. I've gone into my clean cup of water just so that I can make sure that there's no other colors mixed in. Because with yellow, you see it very quickly when there's other colors in there. All right, so following the same concept as before, I'm filling in my leaf with yellow, but this one I want to be a little bit more intentional with leaving some white space in there, just showing through to give it more depth. Now I want to go back in. Yes, there's a bug on my eye. So it happens when you paint outside. Now I'm gonna go in with some orange into my leaf. And with my orange, I'm gonna follow along that center line where I've painted that middle vein, sort of along where the stem is. All right, so now I'm gonna let that one dry, and we're just gonna go on to these little berries that I have on the side. So pretty straightforward with those. Mix any color you want. I am going to do a bit of an orangey brown, and I'm just gonna paint them in. And these don't have to be perfect circles. Just have fun with it. We're gonna go over our painting with pen to give everything some more definition. So the point of these are to be really loose and fun, and then you'll notice as we add details with pen, everything will start to come to life more. All right, so I'm gonna switch to my smaller paintbrush, and we're just gonna paint these little acorns in. So I wanna take a bit of a red brown. I'm just mixing it on my palette here. I'm gonna go in and paint the seed part. So I started with some color, now I'm gonna go in with some water and just blend it out into the other side. I want a little bit more brown in there, so I'm just gonna add some in. All right, now I'm gonna do the exact same thing with my other one up here. So I'm painting it with this reddish brown color, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of shading, so I'm gonna add a bit more brown just to the one side. So with this whole painting, you guys will notice that I'm really focusing on, yeah, just blending my colors, mixing my colors, and honestly using it as an opportunity for practice, just for mixing colors. Okay, so for the top of the acorns, I'm taking a bit of a darker brown, and we're just painting the little cap in that's on top. So the same side that I added the brown in on the bottom, I'm gonna paint on the little cap again, just to give it some shading on that side. So we're making it a bit darker on the one side. So now that we've painted the base of all of our assorted fall leaves, we are gonna go in with pen, add some more detail, and then back with a little bit more paint just to give it a fuller effect. So what I want you guys to do is grab your pens, and we'll start with the first one that we painted. So what we're going to do is we're going to outline each leaf. And this is kind of the point where you can give your leaves more definition. So when I paint with watercolor and ink, I actually enjoy the style that's a little bit more messy, where you can see that I've drawn the pen in some places and the white from the paper shows through. Yeah, but I find that just gives it a very cool and unique style, and it truly does transform your paintings, especially when you're painting with this style. So now we're gonna go just along the stem, and we're gonna draw our line there. All right, so now for each leaf, we're just gonna draw the line that is the vein down the center. And for these lines, I don't want them super straight or stiff. I'm kind of giving them a bit of a curve, making sure that they're all just a little bit different. Now that we've drawn that, I want us to go in and just paint some more veins in the leaf. So what I'm gonna get you guys to do is take your small paintbrush, and we're going to go back in with some green. Now I'm not making it super dark, because as we layer, it'll already show up darker on top of the layer that was underneath. And from the center line, or actually, sorry, from the outside of the leaf, we're gonna draw a line coming in towards the center with our paintbrush. So I'm drawing a super, super skinny line, and it's meeting with that center point. And just like I did with the rest of my lines on here, it's not super uniform and straight. I'm having it be a little bit different. On the right and the left side, they don't need to meet up in the exact same spot. But we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna fill in all of our leaves with these lines, with these veins coming towards the center. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the second leaf that we painted in. So sort of same concept when you're looking at this first leaf. You'll see the shape that they all have. They have sort of oh, that was a mosquito. They all have a bit of a teardrop type shape. So I'm going to follow that same concept, but I'm cutting off the bottom of them. So you'll see what I do with this first leaf is that, it's on my hand now. With this first leaf, I'm gonna start from the tip, and I'm gonna do sort of a, cut off teardrop would be my best way to describe it. So we're curving our lines, and we're just following what we've already painted. If you guys took a look at my PDF that I have linked below, you'll be able to see the shape of these leaves that we're going for. All right, we're just gonna draw the stem down. And now for this leaf, we're going to continue the stem all the way up to the point of that top leaf. And we're gonna do separate ones attaching each little, it is all one leaf, but each little point that comes off of the leaf to the center. Okay, so now similar thing to what we did with our first one is we're gonna go in with this red that we used. So again, I'm gonna go back to this foxberry mixed with just a little bit of orange. And I'm adding it to my small paintbrush. And first thing I want you guys to do is just follow this center line all the way down and extend it past the bottom of the leaf. And now we're gonna do the same for each line that we just drew. All right, and now we want to add in some more fine details. So same concept to this first leaf branch that we did. We're going to do the little veins coming in from the edges of the leaf, using each center vein as our guiding point. But you'll notice that each step on its own is actually really quite simple to create something that is really fun and elegant. Right, so there we have that leaf. Next, we're gonna move on to our sort of maple type leaf. So with this one, I started with painting it, honestly with not too much attention to detail, but that is where this portion where we outline comes in, where we'll just add that definition that it needs. So I'm gonna start from this top point. And again, I'm following the lines that I've drawn, and I'm just working my way around. Now I'm gonna draw that center vein again, coming from the top of my leaf, doing a bit of a wavy line coming down. And now I'm gonna do the same thing where I add the vein in from each of the main points. So find those top 2 points, and we're gonna draw towards the center. And then the same with these bottom ones here. All right, and now I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna add some more veins into this leaf coming out from those main there's sort of 5 of them there. So we're just gonna do some more lines coming from our little points on our leaf. And these ones I'm not exactly attaching fully to the edge of the leaf. Just gives it more interest when you're looking at it. All right, so this one I did similar concept to the first one, but now I'm gonna go in after I've drawn my lines and we're gonna add in color. So for this one, I painted it more red, so I wanna actually take more of an orange color for the lines. So for the last leaf, what we did is we painted the veins and then you could draw the lines. And after this one, I drew the lines in with pen, and now I'm gonna go over top. Because I painted the leaf more red, I actually wanna take more of an orange tone color to paint the veins in, just to give it more depth, more interest. So I've added that paint to my palette, sort of a burnt orange, I would say. And I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna follow the lines that I've drawn. I really like when I'm painting, using this tone on tone effect, because I find that it adds just enough interest where you give it a second glance to see the detail. It's not very obvious, stark lines, it's really subtle. And I find it looks very nice to give your paintings a super delicate look. And again, if you want, you can add some extra lines where you haven't drawn the pen that are just really subtle, light, but you do notice them there. So I'm just gonna go in and add, because I didn't quite do my stem dark enough, I'm just gonna make it a little bit thicker with the color. So next we are moving on to our yellow leaf. Again, if you guys are looking at the PDF, you'll see that this one has sort of jagged edges. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw those in. So starting from the tip, I'm gonna bring my pen down and just add little edges to make it rough. And this one, if I'm drawing with the pen, I'll kind of lift my pen off at portions just so it's not one super straight continuous line. And we're coming down to the bottom, so I'm gonna add my vein in the middle and bring it all the way out. And then same concept as all the other leaves, we're gonna add more veins coming in from the outside. But this one, I'm gonna use a bit more of the effect that I was talking about, where I lift my pen up briefly and put it back down, just to add or contribute to the edges where they're a bit more rough. This you could think of maybe as more of like a dried leaf. Yeah. So lines not super straight. These ones even more so, I'm giving them some texture. And now with this leaf, I'm gonna go in with sort of a brown yellow color to paint over the lines that I've just drawn. Now because the yellow is so light, I'm gonna make sure that I start with really watered down paint, and if I need to go darker, I can always add more layers. So I'm gonna bring my paintbrush all the way down to the end of the stem there. And this one, I actually just wanna go in and add some more color, so I'm just gonna paint a little bit more yellow into sections of it. Just on the one side. All right, so now that that leaf is done, we're gonna move to our little branches with our little berries. So these ones are nice and easy. We're drawing circles around where we have our circles. And again, this is where you can kind of give it more definition, because I sort of just splotched paint on to the page. And I'm just gonna add just the little end of the berry to each one. And now we're gonna draw our stem in, attaching them all to that center line. And I'm gonna do the same with this one over here. All right, and now, because I painted them lighter, now's my chance to go in and add some shading. So again, I wanna stick with this burnt orange color that I've created. And I'm just mixing a little bit of brown in there. And I'm just gonna paint into the side of them. I'm not looking for a super smooth bleed or super defined lines. We're just giving it some more depth, some shading. And now I'm gonna mix a little bit more brown into that mixture that I have already made. And I'm just gonna paint over the lines for the stem. Really subtle, we're not doing anything too crazy with these ones. All right, and lastly, we have our acorns. So we're gonna go ahead and outline these. I'm gonna start with the base. It's sort of a half circle oval with a bit of a point at the tip. And now the little cap, I curve, follow the line that we've painted. It looks like a little beret. And then we'll draw over the little stem at the top. And then with these, if you want to, you can take your small paintbrush, and we're gonna get some really dark brown. And I want it to be nice and concentrated, making sure my paintbrush is not too watery. And we're just gonna paint the little crisscrosses on top. So it's a little checkered pattern. You'll notice, because I'm just layering on top, it is really subtle, but it just adds to our acorns. All right, and I do have this one spot on my painting where I did smudge the paint a bit. So I don't mind that it's like that, but I just want to clean it up a bit. If you guys want, I have a whole video on how to fix watercolor mistakes linked above. So feel free to take a look at that, but I've just added some water and I'm just wiping some of that paint away. All right, so there you guys have assorted fall leaves. I hope that you enjoyed. If you followed along, make sure to take a picture, share it with me on Instagram. Also, I know that this video has more drawing than I usually do in my tutorials. So if you guys are interested in more tutorials on drawing things like leaves or flowers or anything at all, let me know and I would love to share more about that with you. I've noticed that a lot of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed yet, so please subscribe to my channel, like this video if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.